It's time for Recipe of the Day. Tonkatsu is one of my favorite things to get in a bento box when I go to a Japanese restaurant. What is that, you ask? It is pork katsu, which is essentially a pork schnitzel or breaded pork cutlet that is deep fried. It always uses panko breadcrumbs that's nice and crispy. And then before serving, it's drizzled with the katsu sauce, which you can buy at the grocery store, or I will link to a recipe. It's actually from Serious Eats for making your own because it has ingredients that you probably have in your pantry already. It's ketchup, it's Worcestershire sauce, soy sauce, sugar, Dijon mustard, garlic, and then some mirin if you have that. If not, you can use sake, sherry, rice vinegar with a bit of sugar to sweeten it, white wine, or vermouth instead. So you probably do have the ingredients you need to make it, or like I said, you can get it at the grocery store. It is often served alongside white rice and some shredded cabbage, so it's just a nice meal to do that. Maybe some lemon wedges too, and you've got dinner. Now, this katsu that I'm telling you about today is cooked in the air fryer, so you don't have to deep fry anything. I almost never deep fry, so I love my air fryer when I can use it for this kind of thing. What you're gonna do is start out with some boneless pork chops. I like loin chops, sirloin chops, and then you're going to pound them to a 1/4 inch thickness. So you're making your own cutlets. You can of course get them already thin cut or already pounded into cutlets. That is going to work too. You want 4 of them. If you're pounding them yourself, my favorite way to do this is to get 2 pieces of plastic wrap and put the pork in between them. And then you use your flat tenderizer, that flat pounding mallet, or a rolling pin, and you just pound until they're the right thickness. I find the plastic wrap keeps everything like in there so you're not like spraying your kitchen with pork juice for one thing. And then you peel off that top layer and it's easy to transfer the pork to wherever you want to go from there. Then for this recipe, I actually season the pork chops, or now they're cutlets, themselves with salt and pepper all over both sides instead of putting it into the breadcrumb mixture. You can put it there as well. I just find that you get a really nice even coating if you do it on the pork chops, and then the breading is just the breading essentially, which I'm going to tell you how to do now. We are doing that like panade kind of breading. So it's flour in 1 bowl. I like to use a pie plate. So flour in a pie plate, 1 cup of it, 2 eggs into a second pie plate, whisk those up, and then a cup of panko breadcrumbs in a 3rd pie plate. But you're mixing those breadcrumbs with 2 tablespoons of cooking oil. The recipe says olive oil, but you can use vegetable oil, grapeseed oil, whatever you like to cook with. You mix that in with the breadcrumbs and you mix it really well. At first, it's not going to seem like it wants to mix, and then it slowly will. And what that does is it means that every single breadcrumb is coated in oil. So then when we put these in the air fryer, they're going to toast really well because they're all coated like that. See what I mean? This is instead of, for instance, spraying the cutlets after they're breaded with cooking spray, which will work. This works even better. So you pound those pork chops flat into cutlets, and then you put those things into the bowls, flour in 1, eggs in 1, breadcrumbs in the other, mixed with the olive oil, and then you add 1 of your pounded pork chops into the flour, both sides, then into the eggs, both sides, then into the breadcrumbs. I find it easiest to use forks to transfer them between each of these bowls. There used to be this thing, everybody would say keep 1 hand dry and 1 hand wet. I would try, and they would always get mixed up. So I just use forks to move them around, or some little tongs, that works too. Then when they get to the breadcrumbs, my favorite way to really coat things well in breadcrumbs is to put the cutlet down onto the pile of breadcrumbs and then lift the crumbs out from under and over top and get them over top, and then push down on them, and then flip it over and push down again. So basically we're getting to push down on these cutlets without getting our hands covered in egg because we added some breadcrumbs to the top, and then we push, and then you flip, and then you push. See what I mean? And you know what? I just want to back up. I should have said this. Sometimes your boneless pork chops that you start with are actually quite thick and big. So then when you pound them flat, they're actually quite large, and really larger than what was intended for this recipe. In that case, you would cut them in half after pounding them, and then you would only need 2 of them to serve 4 because they are such big portions, you know? Okay, so at the end of that, you should have 4 pork chops that you've pounded flat that you have now breaded. Okay, you're going to preheat your oven to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, your regular oven. And that is just because we are not going to fit all of these into a regular air fryer. If yours is really big and you can fit them all, then don't preheat the oven. You don't need that. But what we're going to do is we're going to cook 2, and then those go onto a pan and into the regular oven just to stay warm while the other 2 cook. And this is just a tip that I use all the time. If you want them to stay as crisp as possible, it's best to put them on a rack on a baking sheet in the oven while they're staying warm, and then the air is circulating under and over them, and then it won't like get sort of wet, damp, or mushy underneath. It'll stay crisp on top and bottom. Okay, so you preheat your oven to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and I would say get a baking sheet and put a rack on top of it so that is ready for you. Then you're going to put 2 of those breaded pork cutlets into your air fryer basket, set the temperature to 360 degrees Fahrenheit, and cook them for 5 minutes. Then turn them over and cook them for another 5 minutes. They will be brown and crispy. Take them out and put those 2 onto that rack that you had ready and pop that into the oven to stay warm while you cook the second 2 in the air fryer. And I'll just say that if you wanted to cook these all at once in the oven, you absolutely can. Do everything exactly the same, but instead of preheating your oven to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, preheat it to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Put all 4 of those pork cutlets that you've breaded onto that rack over that pan, put them in the oven, and cook them for 10 minutes on one side, 10 minutes on the other side. And once they're nice and crispy golden brown, they are done. Once they're all cooked, transfer them to a clean cutting board and you slice them, because this tonkatsu is always served sliced, and then drizzle it with that katsu sauce and serve. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there, or find it in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. And hey, just a quick note. I'm on a recording hiatus right now, so for the next little while, I'm replaying episodes from the archives, including this one. If you heard me mention a holiday, a season, or something going on in my life that seemed a bit off, that's why. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're enjoying these older episodes. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, cookfor2.us, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.